It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
Welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast podcasted from continuing lockdown in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, New Zealand. My name is Lewis, by the way. I'm the host of the show. If you are new here, kia ora. If you're here for Simon, to hear from Simon, my guest Simon in particular, a warm greeting to you, but also a wee little awareness campaign from me. This is episode 112 of now literally within a month or two, a nearly 5-year-old New Zealand-based podcast where I chat to different guests, long form, typically for about an hour to an hour and a half. If you are here, as I say, because of Simon, I strongly, not suggest, I strongly predict. Can you strongly predict something? Let's go with that. I strongly predict that you will find another person who I have chatted to you that will be of interest and of a similar ilk. On TV last night, I was watching something about, maybe it was yesterday morning, quality days I'm living in lockdown during an extended session of breakfast TV. Oh, goodness. But it's actually a fairly interesting commentator talking about the sort of paralysis of being in lockdown, where like you think it's such a commonly said thing, you think you're going to do all these really constructive things and build a this and read a that and write a that and, you know, achieve a this, and more often than not a lot of that doesn't happen. And I'm very much spoke to me. And then today, when I write up the little blurbs you see for each episode, the copy for the episode, where I say like Simon Morse is a da-da-da-da-da, or Chris Faumu is a blah 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 blah. Those descriptions, I don't think I've ever bothered to tell anyone actually on the show this, and it's quite nerdy and quite OCD, but I make those exactly, that first paragraph exactly 152 characters, so including spaces and just every individual letter adds up to 152. So that takes a little bit of work, a little bit of juggling, a little bit of changing the wording to kind of say the same thing, but it creates really tight, consistent copy that also looks really good on the website because all the episodes line up with each other. It does take a wee bit of work, but I am pretty good. It's probably one of my strengths in life is writing succinctly and tightly. But I just spent, I reckon, over 2 hours trying to write Simon's paragraph blurb. Not because it was a particularly difficult one, I don't think, but because everything just is harder in lockdown. It's crazy. And I've been writing a history of Radioactive, the radio station in Wellington, and the same things happened there. I wrote this incredible, well, I think it's incredible, I'm really happy with it, kind of first part, and then I've got all the research and all the bits lined up ready in order to go for the second part. But the other night, like, it was bizarre, like I was kind of temporarily paralyzed but couldn't stop working. I think sat for about 5 hours redoing the same paragraph over and over and over. I don't know, what do they say? It's like Trinity, the little things, they break you down, the little things, they break your life, the little things, they make you mad, but then it's little things that really matter. Like the virtual pinball that's just turned up that I'm about to go and assemble for the rest of the afternoon. Woohoo! It's called the One-Up arcade system, and it's very much an indulgent lockdown purchase, and real pinball machines have, they completely sunk in value in the early 2000s when the coin-op market fell away and everyone thought pinballs were over, and the main company, Williams, their gaming division was going really well, and they thought why do we have all these weird, nerdy, overly passionate pinball guys? They're just dead weight when we can much easily and more cheaply produce machines for Vegas. And anyway, so whole bunch of kind of people putting coins into machines stopped, and as such, machines were on the market for the home market very, very cheap in the early 2000s. That's all very much changed, and even an old shitter that hardly works is going to cost you thousands of dollars now. So I have bought a digital version, which obviously is like vaping compared to smoking cigarettes, or using a controller compared to DJing with vinyl, but it looked pretty good, and it's going to be fun to set up, and it's 3/4 size, which is good for an apartment. I'm also thinking about getting a dog, otherwise I may go mad here. Any dog tips? verbalhighs@gmail.com. Now, I'll get out of your way shortly. Thank you very much to Simon Morse. We had a great chat. It's not been made clear enough in the copy. I spent over 2 hours trying to write. Simon's got a really great history as a artist and someone, I think, as he says, just with like blind passion from the start, and that found him when it was quite uncommon for creative people in New Zealand to find work overseas. It's we're much more kind of visible now. He was working for some quite serious and well-regarded US comic book artists and their publications, such as the geezer behind Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and of course kind of hard rock metal icon Glenn Danzig, and has since worked for a bunch of local artists, for what I call local companies rather, for what I call commercial art. I noticed he didn't term it that, but kind of like doing great artwork for companies like Illicit and Hell Pizza, and also a bunch of work for kind of bands and fellow artists and so on along the way. His partner in crime for many years was Martin Emond, who unfortunately passed in the early 2000s, I think 2004. We speak about it on this episode. I really felt for Simon, and as I say, we chatted about it. So I guess this is dedicated to Marty, and this is a great chat with Simon. A bit of housekeeping. Thank you to Free FM, who continue to support me. They are community radio based in the mighty Waikato, and they are at freefm.org.nz for all your time-shifted listening needs, and they have a range of voices and shows from different communities around New Zealand. Very handy in lockdown, lockdown and coronavirus information in many different languages, and they stream. If you have an Amazon Echo, you can go Free FM 89 with Alexa skill, and you get that via the Amazon Alexa app. Oh, you just say, far out, this is like out of my wheelhouse. You just say, Alexa, stream Free FM 89. If you've got one of those at home, I might have just done that for you. How's that for direct marketing? Please like and rate my show. You can subscribe to all that good stuff you know about doing with podcasts by now. I'm at Verbal Highs on Twitter, Verbal Highs Podcast on Facebook, and Verbal Highs on Apple and Google. You can also stream via Spotify or iHeartRadio. Basically, any large multinational commercial outlet of media, I give my content away to. Okay? But I've got my own site, verbalhighs.com. Thank you very much, Simon Morse. Enjoy, listeners. I'm off to assemble a pinball machine.
This is Dr. Tannen's Verbal Highs.
I feel good. You've got a soothing voice.
So the way, thank
it's
you.
Very nice.
I'm told that.
What about background noise? Because there's people tattooing here. Should I tell them? Can you hear it?
Yeah, it's all good, bro. It's good. It's a bit of ambiance. We're actually at the place we're going to talk about. Yeah. Yeah. So we just launched into it. I don't know if you listen to many podcasts, but these conversational ones, the idea is that we've kind of started now, and I'll trim the beginning off and the end off, and we'll be done.
Okay.
So, are you from Wellington, or did you grow up somewhere else?
I was actually born in Wellington, Porirua, and I kind of mostly grew up in South Auckland, Manurewa.
Oh.
And as in like those sort of essential high school, college years. Mm-hmm. But Wellington's definitely my place.
Yeah.
Wellington's awesome, as you know.
What about school? Did you go through to the end of high school? Do any tertiary?
No. I started off well in high school and then sort of just kind of fizzled out. I've got a little bit of a short attention span, so I kind of lost interest in school, unless it was art, which was only pretty much 1 or 2 hours of the week.
Yeah.
And everything else was just dull. So I kind of dropped out high school was quite funny because I still got my school certificate, which is called NCAA now, isn't it? But I pretty much failed all my subjects apart from art, but art I came first in. So because of that, I was still put through to sixth form or whatever. But in sixth form, I totally lost interest, and I was barely at school.
But I think you're kind of alluding to as well, even though it's not like we grew up in the 50s or the 60s or whatever, but it's sounding like it was a bit more of a kind of fringe activity in the education system back then. I think kids are a bit more creatively encouraged now, eh?
Yeah. Well, back then I definitely wanted to be a comic book artist, but the teachers frowned upon that. They were like, "Oh, that's a glamour job, choose something realistic." It's like they're like, maybe you could do sign writing, and you sort of you listen to them, because you're only 15 or 16 or whatever, and you're listening to the teachers, and you're going, "Oh, well, they're adults, they know." But so I tried doing you're talking about tertiary and whatnot. I tried about 3 art courses. Yeah. But back then, any art course you do is going to be super dry balls because I'm into I was into lowbrow art. I was into the comics, tattoos, and everything low. And which is frowned upon, and I dropped out of 3 different art schools. Basically,
If I take an educated guess, you've got me thinking that maybe then, and I don't know about now, but I'm thinking maybe more then, the options would have been like a kind of really trade-based graphics thing, like sign writing, or going to Elam and being super like,
or there was also just graphic art, which is advertising. So basically, I didn't fit into any of those, and I tried all 3 of them. Yeah.
What, were you left kind of just feeling a bit deflated at that point? They say follow your dreams, but
kind of. I think maybe more naively excited.
That's great
because I had my own agenda anyway. So I was like, I'm just gonna. Basically, I was like, well, I can do retail because I know I can sell things or whatever. I can do retail, and I did retail for about 5 years. It was working in like bookshops like Whitcoulls and Paper Plus and that kind of stuff, which depending on the crew, like the management or whatever, is how good or bad it was. You know? So some of those years I actually really enjoyed. And but in the meantime, I was just constantly drawing. When I wasn't at work, I was either skateboarding or drawing. So it's back then that was the late 80s. Yeah, so that was the big skateboards like that. Skateboards.
Yeah, like the ones with the really kind of more fish shaped ones than now.
The fishtail,
the Caballero, the kind of one of the most extremes of that. Yeah.
Yeah, my thing was Santa Cruz, but mostly for the artwork because I'm Jim Phillips was the Santa Cruz deck artist, and he's a huge influence on my work, as well as like bubblegum cards, those hot rod bubblegum cards. It all comes back to lowbrow, it's just monsters and slime.
That's a great pull quote for whatever we talk about. That's the paraphrasing. But it's just occurred to me that, obviously back then, New Zealand was a bit more starved of everything. And for me, at least, it's that era of skateboarding and wider kind of like street surf culture where I first started seeing a lot of that stuff in New Zealand, except bubblegum cards when I was a kid, like the Garbage Gang and stuff like that would fit into that, right? Yeah. Totally. And was it moving location-wise through a national retail chain of booksellers that you ended up in Wellington?
No, it was actually
Morse. You're going to Wellington. You're going to manage Cuba. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I actually got like retailer of the year for Whitcoulls in about it was like 89 or 88, and like and I got my photo taken and put in some Whitcoulls magazine and all this kind of stuff. It was quite funny because I think the reason I was so good at it is because I didn't care about it in the slightest. I didn't care about whether I sold something or not. And people, like I guess if you're selling something to someone, they, or somebody's buying some stationery and but that the lower priced pen or whatever dictaphone even, because that's kind of stuff I sold dictaphones. Remember those? And like you say, well, you actually should buy this one that's $50 cheaper because it's more suited to you and whatnot. It's just more honest, I guess, and people respond to that.
Pretty much every form of media you have mentioned thus far is now nearly redundant. Hey, things have changed so much. Much.
The times they are changing.
Yeah.
I think some famous person once said.
So we've got we're at a sort of crossroads here, because I want to know, like, did you end up in Wellington and then find the work in the States, or
no, well,
the other way around?
It was more like I mean, that was just like when I was 18. The family, I was living with my mum up in Auckland, and she was moving to New Plymouth, and I'm like, oh nah, So, but my father lived in Wellington here, so I thought, oh well, I'll go down live with Dad, and then
cool.
Get a flat, and then but then I also met some really cool some other artists down here in Wellington, and we just started photocopying comics, drawing them and photocopying them. And
like kind of zine style comic books.
Zines.
Where are we? Late 80s, early 90s?
Definitely 89, 90 now.
Cool.
Yeah, and it did really well. We called it Piss Take, and
That's right.
and I had a character. That's where I created Straight Jacket Ninja.
Yeah,
and it did really well. And it was that kind of like you sort of can't sell them as fast as you can. No, hang on, the other way around. Yeah, they're selling faster than you can print them.
Oh, great! So you had like I'm guessing like a coin cover price on them, because quite often zines just
$1. We wanted to keep them $1.
That's great, man.
Yeah, and then we would do like tours. So we'd tour with a band, and we'd incorporate the zine with. It was always like a punk band or something like. And we'd sort of go on tour with them, and we'd be selling the zines at the back of the gig, and with a cassette of talking about dated technology, we'd be selling it'd come with a cassette.
Oh, you're speaking my language, mate. Come on,
Yeah. And all I wanted was to be a comic book artist, but paid for it, like a professional. And in the meantime, through this zine, because that was with it was me and a guy called Rufus Dayglow, which is also quite a decent irony, because both me and Rufus, I think we met on this art course that we were doing. This was the fine art course we were both trying, and we were the only two to fail this course, and we're the only two out of that class making a living out of art.
Right.
But
that's not an unfamiliar story, man. Yeah.
He's 2000 AD, Judge Dredd and Tank Girl and all that kind of stuff. He's drawn he's drawing for all those guys. Over in England now, and then I'd also, so me and him met Martin Emond, who was being published. He was doing this comic called White Trash, which the owner from the creator of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had created a company. So Marty was doing this amazing, beautiful art. Actually, got some here.
So he was already working for a company overseas. Yeah, that's amazing,
nice,
man.
Isn't it nice?
Oh man,
he was only like 19, and he was being published by by these 2000 AD types and
So my question there is, and I was going to ask you a version of this anyway, is like, the world was a lot larger then, obviously, metaphorically, but you know what I'm getting at. Like, how did he even get that hookup to begin with?
He wrote a letter to Simon Bisley, who's our favourite artist. Yeah. I mean, every Bogan's, like, he's out there with Frazetta and Boris Vijalio and all those. Yeah. But so he wrote a letter to Simon Bisley and sent him some artwork, and Simon wrote back saying, "Oh, your stuff's really good. You should come to England." And anyway, so
a lot of us of a certain vintage have done that, and I know from experience that even getting a reply as a result, let alone that happening. So I'm figuring that's how that led you onto that international stage. Because the other thing is, Wellington and New Zealand are like far more on the map this millennium. What you were doing would have been an oddity at the time here, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. We were absolutely outcasts, but
no, I don't mean in terms of the art, the type of art you're doing. I mean in terms of to be working for.
Oh, I see. An
American.
That's just naive optimism. Like it's just you just try something and it works. And if somehow it works, someone sees it and goes, "That's quite nice, isn't it?" Actually, talking of Small World, I'm taking back, because you said Small World before. So when I saw Marty's work published, it was in the comic shop in Wellington, and the dude at the counter was like, "Oh, this is actually a Kiwi artist." I'm like, "Oh, wow, I'm totally going to look him up next time I'm in Auckland. So I went to Auckland, found a studio and knocked on his door and whatnot, and like, oh, hey, bro, you're doing some good stuff, and this, I'm blah blah blah. Got on real good, and he goes to me, are you from South Auckland? And I'm like, yeah, originally. And he goes, do you remember that time I've met you on a bus before? Because what had happened is like when we were both at high school, we were at different high schools, but I jumped on a bus and there's this dude sitting there and he's got this art folder, but he's got all this Simon Bisley art drawn all over it. And I saw that and I go, I'm going to sit next to that guy. And I'm like, oh, that's Simon Bisley artwork. And he goes, oh yeah. And we're just talking about that. And that was Marty. And then so that was when we were like, that was probably when we were like 15 or 16 or something, because by now we're like, I don't know, 21 or 22, so not that. But then we also worked out that we were in a primary, because I went to like about. But
so you didn't remember the bus meeting until he told you? Yeah. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. When he said, I remember, that was that guy that I was talking to, like I totally, because I remember the conversation in the Bisley outfit and meeting a dude on the bus. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're wearing those like, weightlifting gloves, those kind of fingerless leather gloves.
Oh my God, I remember him wearing those.
Yeah.
He wore those long term, right?
So, he must have still been wearing them when you met him, because he was hard out into gym, whatnot. And then, but then later on, we were like yarning about high school, primary school days, and he's talking about this teacher, Mr. Banks, who did this. And I had a teacher, Mr. Banks. Turns out we were in the same class, and as when we were 10. And I was like, oh, did you draw those? Because it's
for a whole year, and you didn't remember each other or an art class.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So like, so there's always these back in this is back in the 70s now. There's always these pictures of someone drawn Kiss, the band, like Gene Simmons, and then Incredible Hulk. That was the other one. And I go, are you the guy that drew the Kiss and Hulk? And he's like, yeah. So like, and then I remembered who he was again, like, because I remember that he had a Boba Fett action figure.
There's something cool. Like, I don't know if it's nostalgia, but there's something good about a collective sense of a culture that I go, I know, I remember what people were drawing. Yeah, I can tell you what they were drawing in the 80s in Wellington. Everyone was trying to draw the same 5 things, But
that's, and that's also artist brain. Like, you don't remember people's faces, but you remember what they were drawing, know? And also, same with tattoos, you don't remember the person, but you see the tattoo, go, oh, that's you. So Marty, and he was already at the, at this age of, I don't know, from the age of 19. I met him about a year or two later, about 20, 21, 22, whatever. But he was already drawing for all these big companies and whatnot, like Marvel, DC, and even he was actually drawing for Kiss as well. He was doing some artwork for them.
And who's coordinating all of this pre-email, man? Like, does he just do phone calls in the middle of the night and try and work out?
It was all phone calls. Yeah. So that's how we used to do it. And we also had we had fax machines, and we also had mobile phones then. So we'd sketch stuff up and fax it through, as in once we were working for the big companies. But like Marty's like, oh, I reckon you should because I was photocopying stuff, and Marty's like, oh, you should be working for you should be getting published, like working for a big company. And he goes, you should talk to Kevin Eastman of Ninja Turtles. And I was like, because I was a huge Ninja Turtle fan, because they were completely different to what you know them as on the cartoon.
Yeah. That old chestnut. They became like a kind of kiddified version of. Yeah.
To a point where I actually didn't recognize them when I first saw that cartoon. I was all excited because Ninja Turtles, and I watched it, and I'm going, they're all saying "dude" and eating pizza. I
love the way it's like. I love the way it's like both of them were turtles that were ninjas, but you're like, these are not the same guys.
Because the actual comic book, which is what I discovered, because the comic book came out in '84. And the cartoon came out in '90, but the comic book. I discovered it in '86, and I vividly remember like going into the comic shop, and there's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm like, what the fuck is that? That is awesome, Turtles and Ninjas, and it was definitely not for kids. There was like lots of blood and gore, that like the ninjas chopping each other to pieces, and then and then blowing up, and all that kind of stuff that teenage dirtbags get into, and I was just hooked. I was like, this is amazing. It was and it was all a parody of. The actual comic was of the era of, it was gritty, that gritty kind of Dark Knight Returns sort of Batman sort of, Frank Miller was the was the writer, and it's all just a parody of Frank Miller's writing, and so it's all very grim, and as a teenagers. Like,
and in New Zealand at the time, it wouldn't be like the local dairy. Was there like decent bookshops, kind of hooking stuff up?
It was just the comic shop.
Could you try and get stuff into Whitcoulls, or like working at the major record chain where you get a couple of indie records in after you've worked there for a while?
No, actually, no. Either that or
so there was a lifeline somewhere. And where was the who was the comic shop in Wellington?
Yeah.
No, who can you remember where it was?
It was on Edward Street.
Oh yeah,
where
I think I remember that.
You know that all those bars are there now. It's called LBQW or something now.
Yeah,
LBQ, something like that. And it's Meow. You know Meow?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was opposite. Oh, no, you've been away. You've been in the overseas.
No, I remember some of those, but so that would be also where you would meet like-mindeds, which is quite handy as well, right? Because I guess people coming on in and stuff.
Totally. Yeah. That's actually how I met Rufus, David, and the original hookups for comic book stuff. But yeah, so what? Getting back to the to the comic book career stuff, I kind of like the recurring theme or word for the day is naive optimism. Because what I did is I sent some stuff away to Dark Horse Comics, and but I'd also decided that I was just going to catch a plane to the States and go knock on Kevin Eastman's door, as in
that's great,
Turtle creator's door of his studio.
Yeah.
So what I did is, so about like a couple of days before I'm getting on the plane, Dark Horse Comics called me up, and they wanted to talk about the artwork I'd sent them. They were into it, and I said, oh well, I'm coming over to America anyway, and I
we'll fly you. I'm coming over to America anyway.
Yeah.
Business trip, Yeah.
The first thing I did was I don't know, it was 3 a.m. when I landed in Connecticut, and I ended up I'm not very good at planning, so I never have been. And so I just kind of so I arrived at 3, so I hadn't planned anything. So I just slept under a tree in the airport, outside the airport, awesome. Sort of by the motorway.
Yeah.
And
hey, I've been there in similar, maybe not that, but earlier, I'll book a ticket.
Because I had a sleeping bag.
Nothing else. What else do you do? You just take jacket and banana.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then a banana.
I don't know. That's probably not a good idea biosecurity-wise. I don't know.
Yeah, go to jail trying to get that back into New Zealand. But anyways, I caught a bus. I caught a bus out to Massachusetts, Northampton, which is where this Turtle studio was, and then I just kind of bowled up to Mirage Studios, and I knocked on the door and I said, "Oh, I'm from New Zealand." And I'll just show you if you're looking, blah, blah. Anyway, Kevin Eastman, they go,
that's not blah, 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 man. That's awesome. Like, you've got to let someone in if they say, hey, I've just turned up from New Zealand.
Yeah, but they actually went and got,
oh, okay, go on.
They went and got Kevin Eastman. There's a secretary. She goes, oh, I'll get Kevin, and he comes out and he goes, oh, wow, you come from New Zealand. He goes, oh, you're a friend of Marty's, and he goes, cool. And he had a look at my artwork and he goes, oh, this is really good. He goes, I'm going to find you. He goes, we haven't got anything open, but I'm going to make something for you. He didn't have any artist openings, but he really wanted me to. Great, man. Yeah. To do something. So and then he goes, oh, you got like a twig in your hair or some leaves, because I was slept under a tree. I was like, oh yeah.
That's such a nice touch. I'm really glad you told me that.
Pull out. Simon the homeless guy.
You go, so, thanks, bro. I'm glad you like my art. Puts twig in pocket, walks back slowly.
That's how we dress. This is how we dress in New Zealand.
That's right. Kia ora, bro.
Put leaves in our hair. But anyway, so he put me on. He really liked my Strategic Ninja that I was doing for Piss Take, for my photocopy fanzine back here. He really liked it. So he said he made a space for it in an anthology that they were producing, which is called Death Rattle, which is actually awesome because that was a 70s underground comic that because he had in the meantime bought Kitchen Sink Comics or Kitchen Sink Press, and which is Robert Crumb's publisher, and all that really underground stuff, and also Simon Bisley was working for it, which I was like, oh, choice. No, but and also he had bought Heavy Metal the magazine.
It's pretty iconic even to people outside of the realm.
Yeah, because it's like it's a crazy world as well, because it's as in being Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the co-creators, he was saying at one stage in '93 they were making $55 million a year each. So it's like,
really?
And that's all off Turtle merchandise and all that.
Yeah, right.
All that jazz. So they were just buying up all sorts of things, Oh,
but by the time that stuff was on, like the McDonald's giveaways and stuff like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was on everything. Pajamas, skateboards, yeah. And so he put me on. So next minute I'm getting Strategic Ninja published through Death Rattle, and that was fantastic. But the pay was really low, and but I didn't care, and I got myself a flat in Massachusetts, and
I didn't realize you actually based yourself there. That's awesome. Probably a lot more relaxed to just do that then than trying to coordinate that now. Yeah.
Although I did get deported for overstaying, but it's just I am extremely bad at paperwork, and I couldn't fill out the papers, so I just didn't. And I just thought they wouldn't notice that I was there because I'm quite small.
It's funny you got a business this long history as a freelance creative, and you keep telling me about how disorganized you are. But then you there was the Zoom incident, so I sort of get the two different. I'm just kidding, mate. So what's the creative relationship like? And what I mean there is it like arm's length? Do what Simon does for our comic, or is it like a kind of collaborative process, or you're kind of mentored as well? Is there much of a relationship between you and the overall creators when you're working with them?
Yeah. That's a because.
And I guess just while you're thinking about that, is sub question is like, did you grow a lot while you were there based on those sort of people, being in and around you and kind of helping you and throwing ideas around, that sort of thing?
At the time, I didn't really realize, but I guess, in retrospect, it all comes down to ego. Yeah. And there's so much of that flying around in any creative industry. And so I think a lot of talent can be lost or suppressed through somebody else's, ego. So, Jamie Hewlett, who's a Tank Girl artist, he said, a great quote of his is, "The ego is a terrible and dangerous thing, best kept locked in a box under your bed," something like that.
Also, what was your 2 words of the day? Just remind me.
Naive optimism,
and that crazy creative energy. And fuck, it's actually happening. All of that early 20s or whatever for a lot of us who end up there. I think so much is lost because it's just such a we're all doing this, Yeah. And also, I can only speak for me, but I've talked to other guests about this. Like, you've got, if you're a nice person, you've got the best intentions then, but it's not till much later in life you get much better at all that interpersonal stuff and kind of
Yeah.
But,
Or you get better at ignoring and saying yes to everything, but then doing your own thing anyway.
Yeah. So it's like a big kind of fizzing, really productive mess, which is great, but not sustainable in the long term, which is why we grow older.
Yeah.
Do you relate to that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, chaos is my life, I guess. I definitely never have a plan. I'll have a goal, but I'll never have quite a plan of getting there. I just kind of work towards it without any definite itinerary or anything like that. It's way too organized for me. I just kind of, which work. But
that's still a little bit. That's still a little different to that. Like when I talked to Aaron Tokiner before he died, he basically, when he actually turned him over because he's predisposed to mental illness, but just that when it's all happening for you at that early stage of a creative career, it's I think everyone in and around that. I'm just saying I related to what you were talking about, being around those guys. Did Marty make it over with you? Did he live over there with you, or did he stay in Wellington?
No, he'd already. We'd always go over at different times. We met up there one time actually, and it was for the San Diego Comic-Con, and he was already, by now he was working for Glenn Danzig of Danzig and Misfits and whatnot, because Danzig was printing these comics. They were sort of, I guess, I don't know, satanic erotic horror, or basically they're just horror porn. Yeah, they're also based on those kind of like those old school 1950s
Verotique.
Verotic, yeah.
Verotic, right.
But anyway, so I met up with Marty in San Diego and at the comic convention. That was awesome. Yeah. And he introduced me to Glenn, and Glenn really liked my artwork and offered me a job as well. So I was drawing. I ended up drawing these comics for them as well. So I stopped with the Turtle artists and moved over to this really highly paid. I was also starstruck because I was a huge Danzig fan, being a bogan. Yeah, and
sure.
And so I got given this story of a zombie hooker, and it was quite fun to do. It wasn't wholesome. It wasn't something you could show your mum.
So it'll be to do with like how big an operation is, I guess, part of this answer. Like, were you in communication with Mr. Zanzig regularly?
Yeah.
Great. That's cool, man.
Yeah,
so
yeah. It was all through phone calls because I was back in New Zealand by then.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd already been deported. Yeah. So like, he'd just call you up and just tell you about, I don't know, talk about ideas or what he wants and what angles and all this, or just kind of like tell you off the stuff you've done wrong.
And then the other thing I was going to ask earlier, but sort of rears its head again now, thinking about that distance of exchange creatively and also like, as a business arrangement. And also, I guess, pre-internet now I think about it. Like when you were describing like you and Marty and I guess everyone doing this, sending over like essentially specs, like, do you like this? How did you avoid like basically your IP being nicked by someone? Like, there's a character that looks really similar to mine in this really large publication.
It's actually quite hard to get away with as well, I think. Like, but it hadn't happened, which is good. And I mean, the only time you really see it is there's, quite a likeness. And it's borderline parody, but then, or is it 7% different? I don't even know, but that's boring.
But then also like there's often like people who are like that's their one of their idols or their inspirations. So it's a homage, when you get those kind of like, I guess that's that whole thing of like. It gets into like sampling music and what's original and what's
yeah. And
there's some very different ideas, some very old fashioned ideas, I think. But
but I find also this is a thing that happens with musicians as well. Is you come up with the same idea at the same time, and that gets a bit meta, because when like even me and Marty were doing it when we were in Wellington North, and you design something and then
it's going to happen, especially if you're working in the same kind of narrative worlds and visual kind of concepts and ideas. It happens. It happens in all creative forms, but I listen to a lot of stand-up comedian podcasts. And that's a big thing in their scene generally, I think, because there's a bit. It sounds like it's a bit less stable interpersonally than the guys you were dealing with. Which, because we came back to there, it's like I guess if everyone's kind of nice guys in the same circle, it's about supporting each other. But anyway, with those guys, there are joke thefts or joke thieves, and they're really looked down upon. But then there's like 2, 3, and now with the internet, maybe a number of people around the world coming up with basically the same joke at the same time. And it makes sense because if this is on the news and that thing's being talked about, everyone's going to have their writing pen out and trying to figure out a version
but we
of
couldn't explain it pre-internet. We couldn't explain it. It's like and there's all these. I remember there's all these theories going around about like if every thought process you have is you're not really. It's like you're channeling something, or if you're creating something, you're channeling something, and someone else channeled that same thought.
So you're basically saying, and I really like it. It's like before we had Google, we had to rely on stoner combos.
we had to get out the Ouija boards and get it all ectoplasmic on it. But it's but who knows? But basically, it's just wavelength, really, isn't it? You just on the same wavelength and you come up with the same ideas and you're both influenced by something else, or who knows.
And I think if something's really blatant at the end of the day, everyone in that realm or area of expertise or field of creativity or whatever can kind of go spot that, hey man, come on. you stole that.
Totally. There's, I mean, it's definitely rip-off artists around.
And just lastly, you might not know, but just for this bit of trivia might interest you, but what eventually happened in the sampling world, particularly with hip-hop, is after all that litigation, basically, like, a lot of artists who are super creative with that were kind of priced out of doing it. It's a really big expense to make a sample-based album now. But so what's happened creatively that's interesting is you'll get stuff like, and I can't remember, it's someone like Kanye, one of those big artists of the last 15 or so years, like, basically sampled a whole Police track. You'll know it when you hear it, and then kind of sung over it. So it's like, oh, okay. Like, I would argue that's creatively pretty basic, but it's now to do with how much money you can drop on making stuff. Anyway,
right. Because remember back in the 80s, Madonna had that "Justify My Love" song, but it was actually just that whole Public Enemy backbeat. Like it was.
God, what about MC Hammer? It was just MC Hammer was just something. It was Super Freak. The whole track, wasn't it?
Hey, totally.
If you just appreciate good stories about artists, doesn't irrespective of music taste or whatever. I watched the Rick James doco recently. I just came across it. It's a really interesting story. I didn't know a lot about him. Just a complete rogue of but an amazing artist,
Yeah.
So you guys, I think with you, by the time I met you, I definitely put you.
I drew a picture of you.
You did, and you know what, man? Oh, this is terrible. Like, it got. When you're just young and you're moving around flats and countries, like, I had it rolled up. I was carrying. I had all my. Probably shouldn't have moved with all my Forever stuff, and it got caught. It got caught in a drawer at a flat and ripped.
Oh, yeah.
But the dumb thing I did. I don't know why I'm telling you this, because I'm telling you I really appreciated it. I shouldn't have thrown it away being ripped. I should have fixed it. But I don't know if you remember our friend Jez. Luckily, he had access to all that scanning equipment stuff before we ordered. So I've got a bunch of scans of it. It was quite confronting. I didn't realize I looked like an elf. But anyway, I think Jeremy either photoshopped. I think Jeremy either photoshopped a head of hair onto it or off it at some point. So I've even got two versions. So anyway, I kind of I put you guys as you and Marty were thick as thieves, right? When I met you, kind of mid-90s. You're working together, and so was that still enduring comic book work from stateside? Was that what
totally,
you guys were doing
that
full time?
Yeah. I mean, I was doing comic book work until about the 2000s. And then it was actually I got deported when I tried getting back in there. It was more like refused entry. I was just put in a cell for a bit.
Oh, really? They bear a grudge that long?
Yeah, totally. Oh, this is only 2 years after I'd overstayed. So I was living in America in 95, and then I got deported. It would have been at 97, 98. It was only a couple of years later. But anyway, but that kind of slowed down my connections, with publishers because I wasn't fully established. I hadn't really sort of made a name for myself, enough of a name for myself anyway, with the Americans. And then suddenly I'm not allowed back in the country. So then I started working in Japan for Japanese companies.
Oh, what a country, man. And what a country to be doing what you're doing. That place is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was only there for about a month or so, and it was very interesting. But and I love Japanese art. Yeah. As in hugely into it. From tattoos to comics and whatnot, but being there, it's a totally different planet.
I was only there for 2 weeks, and I want to go back. I just described it to everyone as upside down land, and I also realized that song "Turning Japanese" is actually it's quite a clever lyric, because to me what it's saying is that's such a different culture that there is actually a thing. I came back after only 2 weeks, and I was doing little bows and so on, and I wasn't trying to be like, hey, I've been to Japan and I'm all Japan like. It's just it is such a different culture, and so you do start to kind of transition into it. But I could imagine, and it's funny you say that. I thought to myself, man, I could live here, but I wouldn't do it on my own, because I reckon on a bad day you'd feel like the loneliest person on earth, because you are in such a different environment.
Yeah. That
looks like it resonates.
just the whole etiquette and everything. Yeah, you feel you actually do feel really alone there. Fortunately, we had the comic companies that we're working with, because me and Marty were over there together, and we were there with Splash. I don't know if you know Splash.
Yeah, everyone knows Splash. Yeah.
So it was all three of us, and it was great fun. We met some great people over there and whatnot, but I was quite happy to get back to New Zealand.
Splash is such a nomad. He just pops up. He pops. He's like kind of like he's like a punk. Where's Wally? He just pops up. Pops up.
He's there. He's just on Cuba Street all the time.
No, but I mean, you'll see him there. Like, you'll be down there for 2 days, randomly see him, and then and then 2 days later, I'll be on K Road, and Splash will go down the road on a BMX. Like, he kind of
he's amazing. He'll like he's just super. What's it's the opposite of me, because I can't think of the word.
Organised.
No, not organised. Yes, or maybe, but like the word motivated. Motivated is the word I'm looking for. Motivated. Yeah. So so he does stuff. He just does it. He just he's always working on gigs and all this kind of thing. He's and he's been doing some amazing artwork lately. And I actually tattooed one of his pieces on someone's back as a massive back piece, and that was real cool, because I love Splash's art.
I saw some images he put up the other day. He's like, you might be what you're talking about. He's like, put his head in for some huge mural down the old. Yeah. There's like some grain silos down the bottom of Auckland or whatever.
Yeah.
And Steak, man, I remember because I'm a bit younger than you guys.
Oh yeah.
I remember seeing Steak a couple of times in Wellington, and like, again, just at that age where that age where you're taking it all in, and I still remember like how just impactful those shows were.
Yeah, I used to love them. That's
those paper mache kind of like insect masks and so on. And then as far as I can remember, like,
which I think, and so Splash was always inspired going back to 2000 AD, Judge Dredd and all that kind of stuff. They had a character called Nemesis the Warlock,
right?
And that was Kevin O'Neill was this amazing artist, and that was what Splash was. He had these characters called Terminators, but and they were like pretty much Nazis of the galaxy, and they were like wiping out. Aliens were impure, so they were committing genocide on. It was humans committing genocide on aliens, but they wore these big masks like Torque Armada was, as in it was all based on the Spanish Inquisition.
Right.
But that's what the stakes.
So that's what the visual. Right, man. That's really interesting to hear all this time later. Because like I say, I'm just like an 18-year-old, just happy to be there. At some active gig or whatever.
Because if you typed into Google Images like Kevin O'Neill Nemesis the Warlock, it would just come up with all these humans wearing massive masks. These are actually one really enjoyable part of these is I listen back just to obviously make sure if they're okay, give them a bit of a nip and tuck, and so I'll write down all the cool things that my like expert guest in that area has told me about, and then I've got a whole lot of new stuff to kind of look at or listen to. So I guess. Well, it must be a leap forward. So, what you did early 2000s, I probably couldn't tell you. Yeah, can you tell me what I did? Because I can't remember.
I did ecstasy in Melbourne from about 2001 to 2006.
yeah. It was awesome, but I can't remember it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so after being deported, I keep on going back to that because that actually sort of affected me quite a lot because
I don't really want to rub it in. I could tell that it's shit.
It's ridiculous, and so like the American and Japanese sort of connections, like once those publications stop publishing, because some of those publishers are quite short-lived, short-lived being a couple of years. So when they fizzle out, you got to find someone else, and you can't go to the country. Or in this case, America. So I kind of ended up doing just mostly illustration in New Zealand here. I think that was when I was carrying on with the Japanese stuff for quite a while from New Zealand here. But I just do illustration. That's when, and that is when we started doing the illicit clothing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So like, so me, Marty, and Misery. She's
Well, I know of.
Tanya. Yeah. So all three of us.
But that made a huge impact, Like I knew about that from Melbourne,
Yeah, right. Yeah, because that stuff really took off, and it was all, and so it was kind of all three of our artwork had its place. Then it was like the zeitgeist, it suited the time.
But it was the apparel was big as well, right? It was like putting your clothing on, putting your art on streetwear, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, like our artwork, like I did the very first ever Illicit T-shirt, and it was just like it was a kind of a very gothic pin-up girl kind of stuff, which was
I think I can see that in my mind's eye, man. That's been around, hasn't it? Yeah,
and it was like, and that was, I don't know, it's just that was selling. That's the kind of imagery that was selling then, and also like I got a lot of practice through my satanic porn of doing gothic pin-up girls and all that kind of bloody blah, and so I was doing like actually that's one there. I don't know if you can see it. That mummy.
I have to react for the whole audience. It's really I said I have to react for the we don't do video. Awesome. So look, man. Hey, look, I'll put this to you, man. Like it's sort of sounding like I get it. It sounded like you got deported from the USA and probably felt a bit like rather than it didn't end up working out. It's like I fucked it up. That's why it didn't end up working out. But like would all that local stuff have developed for you in such a big way had that not have happened, like, I mean, it's kind of like it's more focused on a New Zealand version of things emerging, isn't it? So that's cool. That's
yeah. I mean, Illicit really took off, especially in like in Australia and whatnot, and because
it was all that era of like, to my mind's eye, I don't know if you consider this similar because I'm not the one with the visual art knowledge, but it was that era of kind of like at the tackier end, Ed Hardy, that kind of, I don't know, kind of like rock, like a rock aesthetic meeting kind of streetwear. Yeah. This is like me trying to explain it in non your world terms.
Quite bang on because we also did like
Wheels and Doll Baby or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because we did a lot of work for She Hard and Head Like a Hole and all that kind of stuff, which is all the rock crossover. So we were doing, so it was Illicit clothing, and we were doing a lot of rock posters.
So you were developing a local graphical style, man. That's great. I mean, it's
yeah. And then at this point, I was actually doing stuff. Remember the package, the big guy, and I was there doing artwork for them for a while. But also I wasn't overly satisfied in those years. Like there was about sort of 10 years where I was I call it my sort of limbo, I guess, like a career limbo, because I felt like I was drifting. I wasn't really.
It's not uncommon, man. It's not uncommon. Yeah.
So it didn't feel like it was happening for me because I'd had that sort of high of the American comic gigs, and then this kind of was more of a low. Even though I really enjoyed introducing all this kind of art to New Zealand and whatnot with all these amazing creative friends of mine, but I started losing interest, and to a point where I'd go to draw something because I also started working for I tried advertising, which was and I was the Hell Pizza artist, and it's all kind of fun stuff to draw, but I still I'd go to draw anything. I'd get all these I'd get all sorts of exciting job offers and whatnot, and I'd sit down to draw it, and I'd kind of feel like that kind of feeling. I don't know if I've worked in a factory before, and there's that same kind of feeling where you just.
I've got a term that I've heard for it. You were phoning it in.
Yeah, but probably even worse than that. Yeah. It was actually more just feeling. I'd feel sick and I'd feel like falling asleep. I'd go to draw and I'd feel like falling asleep. It's this sort of kind of feeling in your stomach, and it's like, and you sort of have all these niggas, I'm probably not even going to get paid for this. I'm going to have to chase that check, and or whatever, or they're going to tell me to change it. You can get quite negative on it, and it basically means you need a career change.
It's not uncommon, man. It happens, I don't know, a period of time, a decade or so after all of that really fertile period I talked to you about. And it's a whole lot of things, I reckon. It's like trying to reconcile where you're at with stuff, like wondering what should I do now, blah blah blah, is it going well, like thinking, it's like, I think it's a kind of process thing. It's not ideal at the time, but I have noticed a lot of the more kind of creative and long-term people I've talked to kind of describe some version of that. Like talking to Aaron before he passed, like he spent 10, 15 years in Christchurch, like working at a mini golf place for his father-in-law who he hated. He couldn't even pick up a guitar, So
and because the other thing is that the other sort of I guess it's like quite a dichotomy or a juxtaposition, or where you just feel like you're not. You just kind of feel like you're not right for this world, really, because all you're worried about is creativity, which is the enjoyment or the happiness you get out of creating, and things like what most people care about is money. Money is the number one religion, or it's people's. They chase it, they worship it, but basically you don't give a fuck about money. And not many creatives I know do.
Yeah.
Well, and so you're sort of like, so you're working for other people, you're creating these things, and it's like, and this is just, you're doing this for this abstract concept, which is numbers. This will be numbers in your bank account, and it's like, yeah, sure, numbers are survival in this day and age, but like
numbers are survival in this day and age. Yeah. Sorry, okay, that song, and I don't know that. So what are you singing? I just made it up.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You wrote the lyric, mate. I just put it to music.
I know that song. Yeah, I wrote it. I wrote that one. So I ended up actually on the dole, not knowing I couldn't draw. Actually, I've got a backpedal there, because the other thing that set it off was Marty's death. So he took his own life back in 2004.
I was going to get there fairly shortly. Yeah, mate. Yeah. So that. There it is. There it is, right in the middle of that period.
Storm, I guess, of a whole bunch of things, or it was change, or it was crossroads, I guess, or whatever. But so every time I pick up a pencil to draw, I'd spent the last decade drawing alongside Marty, and it's kind of like that. It's kind of like you feel like their ghost is over your shoulder. It's like that. It was actually felt like that, and so he took his own life in LA. And he I think he might have got that loneliness, depression feeling over there. You're talking about Japan and whatnot. But I mean, he definitely had some maybe some mental health issues, like maybe depression or bipolar. I'm not really sure. I don't know if he was ever diagnosed for anything. But most of my artist friends, or all of us, are pretty sort of on the spectrum somewhere. So that incident affected me more than I thought, because but it was a whole bunch of years. It took me a whole bunch. It took me a lot. I mean, anyway, I had this. I just didn't know what I was going to do. I even tried applying for jobs in retail again, and getting turned down. I didn't really know how to put a CV together. But
that surprises me, Simon.
It's for the best, because I eventually, it was like 3:00 in the morning. I woke up in a cold sweat, just panicking about what I'm up to. But it was just tattooing. Tattooing just came into my head. I was like, oh, tattooing. Why aren't I tattooing? Why haven't I thought of this?
Well,
I'm really
just quickly, like a lot happened for me in kind of a couple of years in Wellington, and I met a lot of people like yourself in a very short period of time, and I totally remember both you and Marty, being, when you're 17 or 18 or 19, whatever I was, people even a little bit older being really seeming like significantly older, especially when they're doing cool shit. And both of you were always super fucking cool and super engaged. And I remember interactions with him really well based on how few of them there were. So it was really, really, really bad news to hear when I heard it all those years later, and I'm really sorry, bro, it's really sad.
I mean, and the thing with losing someone is that, the same feeling, when you think of them, you think back and it's always the same emotion of loss. You just have learned to deal with that emotion. You've learned to process that emotion differently. That's all. That with losing, just anything like that.
Gave him my huge Metallica poster that I found stuck to a wall and had on my wall for about 2 years. I had no need for it anymore. I had the 1993 Auckland Metallica tour poster, and it was like two. I think it's called, Foolscap. The Foolscap, the really big. I know. I don't know whatever it is. The biggest one that you.
It was called like Double O.
Well, it was
something like that. Or
it was two of those as one.
They used to do that with the big rock.
I found it. Wellington so well. I found it freshly glued on that wall that juts out on Vivian Street. It's like a retail premises, and there's like a wall on the footpath. And I got it home on the bus and on a friend's washing line, and for about an hour, because you know how that glue goes really hard, and in Wellington Wind I managed to
that's awesome.
So it's sounding like you obviously found your footing in the end, and that was coming to tattooing, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But then it's a big thing, a big leap of faith to open your own business and shop. So how did that all come about? Can you give me another 20 minutes or something? Is that all right? I normally go for about an hour, but I could easily chat for another 20 minutes, half hour, if that's cool.
Because naive optimism again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I just woke up going, I'm going to be a tattooer. So like, and I'd always had a lot of tattoo friends, people that my age starting to tattoo when I was starting to comic illustrate and whatnot, like Dean Sacred and Dan Anderson from Sacred Tattoo and whatnot, and Shane Gallagher who was in Wellington here, and all those guys. They were it's like so it was like and I was noticing the reason I really was getting excited about tattoos is because tattooing was changing very rapidly from just Celtic knots and tribal and skulls to actual illustration.
Yeah.
And I was really starting to notice. I was like, wow, I'm really had a new love for tattoos, and then all these friends of mine, like Dean and Dan and Shane and whatnot. I was going, oh wow, I've seen these pieces of art. These tattoos they're producing. These guys can actually draw. I never knew these. I knew they're friends of mine for that long, and I never knew they could actually draw.
Really?
Because I'd already seen
I thought that was kind of a
Celtic
big thing about great tattooists. Is they're like
no, but like the 90s, people didn't want drawings. People wanted Celtic knots and tribal, and that was it. And if you were really out there, you'd get like something traced out of a comic book. Like
the classic one is the guy who does a lot of jail art, and it's really good and translates to like.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's the absolute lowbrow, and there's a lot of tattooers had said to me, "Oh, if you ever want to start tattooing, come to me."
Great.
So, but anyway, I just went down. I'd also been doing t-shirt designs for this Wellington company. It was ALC, and that was just sort of punky goth apparel type stuff, similar to Illicit, kind of like I guess.
When I lived in Cuba Mall late 90s, and at that stage Shane had the like basement premises opposite my place, like on the corner. Is he still around Wellington?
No, he's Melbourne these days.
Okay, so two things to ask about what you've said so far. Like, firstly, I'm guessing that the tattooing had got better because, like, the inks and that sort of technology had got better, or the needles or something, or had the art, the style of doing it just developed over the years.
Both.
Right.
It was actually tattoo related TV shows. Like the first one was that Kat Von D one.
Yeah.
What was it called? Miami Ink. That LA Ink, I think.
Yeah.
That sparked a mainstream interest in tattoos. And suddenly just everyone, tattoo. There's not enough tattoo shops to tattoo everyone type thing is. And but anyway.
I didn't realise that is what blew tattooing up. I just thought it kind
I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like it suddenly, and it became like this kind of real pop culture.
Yeah.
I thought at the time it would be fleeting, but no, it's just still escalating.
Mid 2000s. I'm getting so old now. I can't remember when things happened. But I know through my time in Welly, it was like people in criminal circles, like my dad, who had tattoos. All the stuff people say, sailors, and then like artists and musicians. Yeah.
But now that people were getting illustrative tattoos, it was perfect for me because it was very similar to comic book style, a black outline and what lowbrow, back to lowbrow. It's all very lowbrow, and it doesn't have to be like it. It doesn't have to be. It can be tattoos. There's posh tattoos. There's everything, but it's whatever you. Whatever your jam is, I guess. But so all I had to learn was, I guess, how to get ink into skin.
This is my second question. So someone says, "Hey, if you want to come and tattoo with us, come and do it any time." So I'm like. Who's the first person who sits down and pays you like a whole lot of money and you've done it twice? I mean, it's not quite like getting somene's second brain surgery job, but still it's permanent.
So this is me. My impulsive. I kind of like the next day I bought a tattoo machine.
Great.
And then over the weekend, that was a Friday. Tattooed a bunch of oranges and grapefruit over the weekend, and then did my first tattoo on Monday. I had a huge line of friends wanting me to practice on them, and which was fortunate. It was kind of weird for me starting tattooing. It was almost like it was too easy because
that's good.
Tattooing is very hard to get into. As in, you have to find like a right shop at the right time. Who's looking for an apprentice, all that kind of stuff. But
that's my other thing I got to ask, man. Is that's what I was going to think. There's no accreditation body or anything, right? So it's up to I guess the quality of the person that runs the tattoo shop as to who they let tattoo or not.
Yeah. So the other. So I went down to ALC and they're like, oh yeah, you can Ali, do you remember Ali Reid? He was like the sort of punky guy around town.
Maybe by sight, man. Yeah.
And he's a tattooer, so he taught me the ropes, and wasn't like a real apprenticeship. It was kind of weird because I think he felt outranked because of my I don't know, career maybe. But anyway, So I wasn't running around for mop and broom like an apprentice does, and cleaning everyone's grips and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of had this special treatment. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I wouldn't recommend it. It's like it is actually good to do the hard yards, I think. But anyway, I just got into tattooing.
Well, also there's all this foundational stuff you've done. It's assumed. It's like anything. If you were going to enter a trade, you already done a whole lot of stuff around that for years, and they know you're good. They're not going to, because they're also like that's patronising you as well. So anyway, and
it's also it also happened very quickly as well. So a bit too quickly, with tattoos, the main thing is healing. It has to heal, and so I'm sort of tattooing all my friends and strangers by now too, because the tattoos were looking okay, but whether they heal or not, that's
because I was just thinking of I'm thinking now of jobs that you probably don't want to hear from the person. This is my first time, and for me it would be surgeon, commercial airline pilot. But I think tattooist has got to be up there.
and so it was cool. It was actually quite stressful as well. Because it's it almost is like surgery. It's like it's art, but there's blood and there's healing involved. I got the hang of it and whatnot, and then I just after 2 years I just decided I'd just work out of my own little space. I thought I just want to sort of do this at my own pace. I don't want to work for someone else. So I got a little space up here in the James Smith Markets, James Smith building, which you would know where the markets were and whatnot. It's an old.
Does Blackmore still own it?
No, he's moved to Brisbane now. Oh, yeah. But I approached David Blackmore and I said I was wanting to tattoo out of you, or get a place to tattoo from, just by myself.
With all due respect, David Blackmore, classic bogan retirement place, Brisbane.
Oh yeah, he's totally and so he goes, oh, you can have my old office,
great,
which had submarine doors and all this kind of stuff, because he's completely eccentric, as you know, he had Team Satan Racing and all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah,
it's like those iconic kind of inner city Wellington entrepreneurs. They're all like that.
Yeah,
the guy from X23 as well. Paul.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, sorry, keep going, mate.
I just set up and up the top there, and then I thought I just started apprenticing Shah. Nursey, she calls herself. Nursey is her tattoo name. She was. I'd always wanted her to get into tattooing.
Yeah.
And so it was me and Nursey up there, and she was apprenticing. She'd been tattooing from home, and then it just became Dr. Morse, as in like an actual a studio, as in, because then we got Cam, who calls himself Skin Spider. He's only just left just very recently, but he was with us. Yeah, so this is, I'm talking now, this is like 10 years ago, because my business is 10 years old.
But that's great. That's so great that it kind of like came together, that you had two other artists and staff members that you knew you could trust at that early stage, or whatever the term is. It's really lovely that happened,
Because now, 10 years down the line, we're like in a huge space compared to what that was. Yeah. And there's like 10 artists, 10 of us, I think, here at the moment.
Wow.
Like, which is quite big for a tattoo shop. But
it's huge for Wellington for a tattoo shop, man. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's a real cool spot. The main thing is about this place is the, I guess I'm always just trying to make it like somewhere that you want to go to. I'm talking about like, I'm talking about people that work here. Like, you have to want to go to work. Like, once you like start despising your workplace or your workmates or whatever, that defeats creativity as well. So I put that, or the comfort of the place, I put it before this abstract thing I was talking about.
Well, also you're kind of creating a culture around it as well, and like I've noticed there's less of these kind of public spaces to congregate. That's why like I asked about the comic shop. Things like retail, I don't know, stores have just become a lot more like, what's the transaction? Can we put your email address on the database, So I think it's great.
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at there, right? That kind of difference between what you've just talked about and sort of like, a tattoo sausage factory.
Yeah.
That only does sausages. Anyway, so...
but talking of sausage factory, like where the people working here, like out of the 10 of us, we're very, I guess, rainbow friendly is what you'd call it. We have transgender working here. We have a lot of rainbow community working here.
A range of ages as well with that many people, because tattooing is a lot of people come in. Yeah.
Also, probably 60% women tattooers here, female tattooers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which is quite. I guess we are a very different shop in that respect.
Yeah. Well, because traditionally it's a small bunch of dudes, is what you're basically saying.
We're not.
I'm saying like traditionally tattoo shops are like yeah. Well, like look, Shane. Like I know a lot of people who know Shane, and I mean, I particularly because what I'm going to talk about, like he was always quite intimidating, because I'm quite a bit younger and stuff, but he was, he's like a Henry Rollins looking kind of dude,
Yeah, so, and we're all just nerds here too. Like we're all just absolute nerds, and also, but we are that. But that's us. Like our shop is, I guess, my personality or our personality, and I think. You do need, like, there's a lot of tattoo shops around Wellington now, and so you can pick and choose if you want that angry biker treatment or you want the sort of more
depends on the time of the day, the occasion.
Yeah, well, or whether it's Angry Tuesday or so you can pick and choose, and it's a good thing. There's tattoo studios that would say that they'll say that they've been insulted if you say that the artists, they don't like having the word art and tattoo in the same category. There's tattooing's a craft, and and it's all very basic and fast and blah blah blah, and that's cool, because to me that is an art as well. That's its own type of art. And then but the people that I have working at my place, we're all illustrators.
Great.
So
does that mean for the lay person, like I know what it means in terms of like craft wise and stuff, but for the lay person, would that imply or suggest that there's a sort of sit down or collaborative process beforehand with the client, and part of the is drawing that thing. I would have thought, I always assumed that had always been fairly common, but then I guess you got the other end, which is like flash tattooing, right? Which you guys do as well, don't you? Yeah.
We're trying to just figure out like what's in, like if I was going to be tattooing you, like what are you visualizing, and I've got to like try and work out, communicate what you have in your head, and then you go through different illustrations and pictures of whatever references and whatnot, and you work out pretty much, I'd try and work out what
And
it is that you want.
There must be a bit of like, I don't know what to call it, like pastoral care or like, what do you call it, best practice on your part. Like, there must be times where you just have to like say to someone, no, I can't tattoo you, or that's not a good idea. Yeah.
But I mean, also
the extended version of "Go Home, You're Drunk." I don't mean.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite one, because normally
because some tattooers would just do it to go, "You idiot," the next day. Anyway, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, because if you're gonna if there's a tattoo that you can't do or you don't want to do. When you have 10 artists, there's normally someone here that will be good for that tattoo. But the one this one in particular was this guy comes in, he's like, I want he wanted the Twin Towers collapsing, like all down his front. He wanted the Twin Towers collapsing with Osama bin Laden at the bottom there, with 2 AK-47s just shooting them up into the air, celebrating. And and I was like, and he goes, "Can you do that?" I mean, like, "Oh, nah." I'm like, "Nah." And he goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, I kind of expected you wouldn't want to do that. But he goes, "But."
He goes, "What's your problem with Muslims, mate?" Sorry.
No, it's all good because he had a plan B.
Yeah.
And plan B was, he goes, "What about like Jesus crucified Jesus, but the cross is upside down, so he's been crucified upside down."
He pivoted ideologies fairly quickly.
It keeps going. Yeah. And Satan is there, decapitating Jesus, like. So
Simon, come on! What a lost opportunity. Shit.
I know.
Okay, what about this one? Like less extreme and kind of like potential individual mental health cases. More like arguably doing your whole neck would be quite a big decision. But like in this day and age, is that kind of like none of your business whether someone wants their neck done?
Oh, it's definitely our business.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, or my business personally, because I'm like, am I going to ruin this person's job opportunities, or how they judge if they have to ever make a court appearance, all that kind of stuff. So the way most tattooers decide is, if they don't have other tattoos, if they're not quite covered, then you're not going to get straight onto their neck or hands or face.
Yeah, because it's interesting how cultures develop, and society changes. This is a total guess I've thought up on the spot. I would imagine that the rule, however long ago, would have been up to the elbow, and now, like, you can probably go down to the beginning of the hand if you wear a long sleeve shirt, end of the arm if you wear a
there's no
long
real
sleeve
rules
shirt.
now,
I know, but it kind of like, I'm talking general societal, like, well, that's far out, because no one bats an eye at full sleeve tats now. They're everywhere, Some incredible stuff as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like having a whole, even one arm that was full sleeved was like a lot of dedication not so long ago,
Totally. Yeah.
When I first hooked this up with you, I'm like, I don't actually know a lot about tattooing, so it's fun to learn, Simon.
Have you not got tattoos? You haven't got them?
No. I'll tell you my reason I think the core reason quite briefly is that I came on up. I'm born in '76, and
You're a dragon.
What was it?
You're a dragon.
My dad was like, one of the big armed robbers in the 80s in Wellington. Like, there was an armed robbery squad. It was a big thing in New Zealand, Aussie. And then inevitably heroin and Mr. Asia got involved. He's done huge long legs all my life. And so basically, like, he was one of those, like lots of, there's that era of kind of New Zealand guys that are like the Crims. You know what I mean? That kind of tattooing.
Yeah.
So it's not like out of like disdain for him or anything. It was more like that. Mum brought me up. I don't know. I just suppose basically like I probably shouldn't get covered in tattoos or I'm going to freak my mum out or some version of that. But also like it was like it was quite an extreme. It was quite an extreme kind of thing back then. So I guess that's the reason.
You're quite alternative, Lewis. You're probably one of the only people I know that doesn't have tattoos. Aside from my beautiful girlfriend who has no tattoos whatsoever, and it's quite odd for me, and I love it.
There's a great meme of like one of those like images of a 1930s kind of muscle man that's like, see the amazing untattooed man,
Yeah.
You know what? I don't normally do, but I thought it'd be quite fun because I was like, what should I ask about this? As I got some list of questions that we can end on, just like we're on the radio, like back in the old days.
Yeah, I remember those.
So they are. Here we go. Some of these might have a bit of crossover with what we've talked about, but hey. Okay, so Kent from Russell asks, this is actually a twofer. He's got two questions.
Are you making this up?
No, these are genuine. These are genuine. They put them up on the Facebook page, and then I took the time to go and look at. I looked at their about, and I looked at their location.
Yeah.
Kent from Russell asks, this is a good question actually. Shit, Ken. Is your tattooing influenced by music?
I would say my comic illustration was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's all the same DNA. It's all the same DNA, man.
Yeah. So initially, my artwork was definitely influenced by music. Like back when you're in your teens and early 20s, when music's like your religion, and so like you're sort of relating all these drawings to like things like like I was really into suicidal tendencies and ministry and all these kind of industrial type Nine Inch Nails type bands, and even Metallica, like Rob Bogan stuff, and Slayer, and I'd definitely like just be throwing those elements into the mix.
I reckon music's got less central in everyone's lives. Like young people do a lot more gaming and this, that, and the other now. So like, to me, like music's the constant in all of that. Like, you know, you're going to do this, you're doing that. There's music at the cafe. There's music at the gig. There's music.
These days, my artwork's based more on emotion. Great. Not really, just emotion, like how do certain colours make you feel? How to, what emotional response are you going to have from looking at this image? So that's.
I'd love to go there. Maybe I'll talk to you about it in person sometime. But that's the thing. That's the thing. No, the thing I've thought about is like, I think that aesthetic side of thing and knowing colours, but also knowing like colours that suit people, like not just their skin tone, but like I don't know. Like I see really unfortunate examples of tattoos that are just not matched to that person, you know. So I think that's a big part of it. Kent's second question. Kent's actually got three good questions. Kent's quite talented. Sorry. Does the client get to choose the music, presumably during a session?
No.
Oh.
No.
And thirdly, this is quite a different topic. What has been the best barter or trade for a tattoo?
Okay, for me, toys and comics.
Oh, cool.
My best one is trading a tattoo for an issue of Hulk 181, which is the first appearance of Wolverine.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful moment.
Oh, man, I'm guessing that the shop, like every now and again, fills up a bit more when you do a wee trade with a customer and another collectible goes up on the shelves and... Yeah. Okay. So thanks, Kent from Russell. That was great. So this next one, Big Tone, from Raitai asks, are there any? These are good, mate. Are there any parts of the body you will not tattoo?
There is, but that all comes down to who it is as well.
Sure.
But I've never tried tattooing a penis. I've never tried that.
Yeah.
It's just like the stretchiest, weirdest skin that I don't want to go near. But then again,
well, also you start to move over into a sort of arguably another kind of interpersonal human service, like trying to keep it in a state where you can actually get the imagery on it that you need to. I've
heard stories of people trying Viagra so they can. So the skin's more stretched, but then that doesn't work. It doesn't actually stay up. It doesn't stay erect. It's like when you're being stabbed in the cock. It's not fun.
Thank you. That was very thorough. Big Tone. Yeah. This is a Big Tone double play from Raitai asks. Ask him about relationships with clients. I find, because by the way, I actually know who Tony is. He's an old boss of mine, lovely guy. And he went from being a clean skin to having a number of them now. Anyway, he said, I find it to be a very intimate process and have become a close friend with my artist.
You
can't become BFFs with all customers, but there must be a few people who are like long term.
It's almost like the being a tattooer is like, it's almost crossing over hairdressing with sex work. It's like, it's got awesome. It's got that kind of like, the the hairdresser kind of, you come to a salon, parlor, whatever. It's got that kind of vibe or feel to it, but it's way more intimate than a hairdresser. It's, I guess, the needle is penetrating the skin, or it's and it's also, there's blood, there's which is, I guess, body fluids or whatnot. But and so you do have this kind of you definitely, like, if you're doing like a back piece or a sleeve, and you spend a lot of hours with this person over the process of whatever.
Oh, absolutely, and yeah, totally, yeah. And
the other thing is that mostly we get on really well with our clients because they're attracted to our what do you call it? Our
kind of everything you've described.
Our vibe, whatever. The
culture of the shop, maybe the culture of the shop. Yeah. Like we don't really get the that tough guy, non-communicative, just like a grunt here and there. Well, they go somewhere else. No, I mean, look, like each to their own. But the other one is that I've observed, like kind of based where you are, is I've seen a shop kind of central in Auckland that kind of, to me, like, I was quite shocked actually. It's in a strip mall, and it's kind of like looks like it's got a Burger King menu, like it's like lit up plastic panels at the top. My point being is, like, I could see in the middle of Wellington you'd get a lot of those like kind of walk-in style things, but sounds like it's good. You're kind of you're off the beaten track, and anyway,
I think it's good those places exist. There's something for everyone.
And I wasn't shocked. I need to be really, really clear. That is not at all a critique of what sort of tattoo someone might wear, like their taste or whatever. I was more like, it's what we talked about before. I was more like, shit, that things look like it's just set up for like a teenager to randomly get a tattoo, like when they're out. It's kind of worried me a little. You start to do that when you're a bit older. You start to have parent thoughts even when you're not a parent. Lastly, J Jaguar from Wellington asks, I might risk offending customers, but are there now we are getting into like judging people's tastes. Are there contemporary equivalents of the are there contemporary equivalents to the old barbed wire around the bicep or the tramp stamp?
There always is going to be, and it's but whether it has the same stigma in the next 20 years, I don't know. But like, say a classic would be mandala tattoos. Like a lot of people are getting mandalas or mandala style, and it's like it's like, oh yeah, it's like whether people are going to be judged in the same way as a tribal tramp stamp or a Pamela Anderson barbed wire. It's like you'd look at it and go, oh, that's that era, or that's
totally.
You say, oh, that person would have got that tattoo in 2000.
And for me, totally, I reckon that is as the person getting the tattoo, is understanding or like knowing what you want in terms of the difference between style and fashion, right? You know what I mean? Styles like that record you can still play 30 years later. Fashion.
I was going to say, I was going to actually go use music as a metaphor, because you go back to music. Like, remember back in the day, it's punk, rasta, metal, and you choose that one, and everything's very, there's camps, and then, but these days everything's just a mismatch, and tattoos will be the same. It's like, in the future, people will be getting mandala, tribal, and illustrative. It's all just going to be mixed and matched.
I've got one more for you. Celtic armband was in Thailand in the late 90s. You know those ones that go around the top?
Yeah.
That's like a Thailand holiday in the late 90s.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of those. I was just telling you that I know some of the stuff, mate. That's a late 90s. Then there's the Pamela Anderson barbed wire.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, man, this has been really, really fun, and I actually have been in lockdown for nearly 8 or 9 weeks, and I think I've actually talked, not texted or whatever, probably 2 other people in the last week. So,
how much longer are you in lockdown for?
I've got another week to go. I'm pretty well set up.
Okay.
Last year was tougher because it was new, but also I didn't realize it at the time, but a number of things in my life, it wasn't as well set up as it could have been this time going in.
Okay.
Not at a like bad, not like at a sort of, they said like early 2000s or whatever, more just like kind of family thing, a work thing. Anyway, so it's longer this time. I'm doing okay. Look, I get a regular wage every week now. I'm not flatting. Like it's kind of like a lot of people would be gritting their teeth a lot more than I am,
Yeah.
But it sucks.
You've got a Gallagher machine.
It sucks where the world is.
You've got Gallagher behind you there.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah, 20 cents. And you've got Yoda behind you there too. I used to have that Yoda puppet thing.
And when you teach from here, like students buzz out on it because I think a lot of their tutors are like, teaching from quite sort of like.
Are you teaching? Are you?
Yeah. And so online learning is a whole other thing as well. Like I just had the last week of semester 2 for my students, and I know they got a lot on and stuff, but I kind of felt really flat when I got off the thing because it was only about 15 minutes because only 4 of them logged in, and like I don't know, man. I just hope everything works out for the world because we're not meant to be like this, right? Yeah. I'm teaching because I like going into a room of young people and kind of shooting the shit and showing them stuff, not looking at little black avatars on a screen and hoping that they like it,
yeah. At least we can reflect. Lockdown. It's like, oh man, what's important in the world? Like.
Hey, well, look, I'll get out of your way. We've made the link back now, and I like. It's lovely when you reconnect with someone and go, oh, that's right, totally remember this guy's vibes. So I'll make a point of popping in next time I'm in Welly because it is home. Yeah, and Nan's there, and might get a full back tat, mate. No, okay.
Yeah, go on.
See you, bro. Take care. I'll forward you the episode when I've got it up online. But thank you.
Yeah,
great to see you.
Awesome,
bro.
brother.
Okay.
Cool.
Bye.